that is cyber resilience by Mr. Ganesan Ramani, IT Director, Shell. Cyber resilience is an important term to understand. It is a new terminology which is coming up. And in the current digital age, the security of data, applications and processes is of utmost importance. Cyber resilience is a concept that is rapidly gaining recognition. It is a wide umbrella that encompasses information security, IT, infrastructure, business processes and organizational continuity. Resilience is not defined by checklists. We welcome the opportunity to discuss the importance of cyber resilience for none other than our very own champion, Mr. Ganesan Ramani. He is an IT auditor with Shell. Ganesh, all yours.
40 minutes away from the schedule. So thanks, Amrita, for the invitation, and I thank ISACA Hyderabad chapter on the board for giving me this opportunity. And I hope that we had interesting sessions for the morning. And in my session on cyber resilience, I'm going to focus on certain key areas where organization has to kind of focus on, right? So when we talk about continuity or resilience, we generally kind of think in the angle of only of natural disasters coming and hitting, right? Like your floods or earthquake or political instability. So these are the common things which we kind of think about it, right? But there is something which is beyond that, right? Okay, so I think I got it back. Okay. I think can maybe get the slide. Okay. Next. So I think I was talking about the business continuity or resiliency. So before that, I think I forgot one thing. As an auditor, you have to be very careful what we talk. Right. So all the opinions, again, I express a lot of personal thing, nothing related to my current and earlier organization. Can we go on to the next slide? Yeah. So few focus areas which I want to focus on. One is on the cyber world, what we are talking about it, and what is the risk reality? What is the cyber risk reality? I think we had an interesting topic from the morning, starting from law and enforcement, and Krishna Sastri is talking about forensics and fraud, and how to define cyber resilience for the organization, any kind of framework or guidance which is available, which we'll discuss, and finally, what are the IT and process controls to build a cyber resilience and to kind of assess it. Because end of the day, we can talk about a model, a high-level architecture, but if it doesn't boil down to the processes and IT controls, nothing you can see in the ground level. We can just still talk about 50,000 or 60,000 feet, right? So that is one thing. And again, finally, how your incident response procedures can act upon, and all the best practices. So this is the cyber world, what I want to talk about. Like well connected, right? You can do any transaction sitting in any part of the world at any time, given time, right? So it's good, it's very convenient, but again, it is so dangerous also for the enterprises and as customers, as we are also, right? So it's very important for us to acknowledge the fact that this world is so connected, and any transaction can be done, initiated at any part of the world. So we have to ensure that if the availability is getting impacted, then it becomes a big problem, right? So, can we go to the next slide? Right. So, what is driving the cyber phenomenon? One is the hyper-connected world, which we talked about, and rapid IT evolution. So, this is also very important. We have to acknowledge, like, we had a session on blockchain now and IoT now. A lot of connected devices, new architectures, new protocols coming in, right? We are moving away from the traditional stack, right? Even in terms of application programming, we have a kind of a 2-tier or a 3-tier architecture. Now we are talking about AWS and microservices, where you can run your component in any virtual private cloud at any time and reuse that as well, right? So it is like getting more and more elastic, flexible, and agile. And finally, the target is also like very agile, right? Right now you have got malwares. When you put on a sandbox, the malware knows that it is a sandbox. It gets a property of the sandbox. So it's getting really dangerous day by day. And we have to acknowledge that fact. And all these constitute a cyber risk, right? We can go ahead and pursue a risk at any point of time. So these are all the kind of threat vectors, or I would say like emerging risks which are hitting the organization. Can we go to the next slide? It's working? Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so now what is the kind of basic problem in enterprises which we want to kind of focus on? The first one is the lack of business ownership, right? So this is a traditional problem in the last 10 years, right? Where business says that, okay, I need to have a, say if you consider a bank, I need to have a consumer banking channel running up. I need internet banking and mobile banking. So I am the head of business for consumer banking. But I don't care whether you are running a Apache Tomcat server, or you're running a WebLogic server, or you're having MySQL database, or you're having an Oracle database, right? So the involvement of business towards the IT is lacking very much. It's all left to the IT manager, right? End of the day, they say that you need to have 99.99% uptime. So generally, even business leadership are not involved in the technology selection, which is considered as a big gap. But if you see the new generation companies, like if you take up Google, Amazon, Netflix, what they have come up is a business model called as two in a box. So what is two in a box, right? For example, if I'm running a consumer business, right, head of consumer business in a bank, then the head of business and the head of IT will sit, they'll be called as two in a box. So the budget is allocated for them, the business gives the money, business also monitors them, and business come in their day-to-day operation, they come in the agile call, stand-up, they are also part of the scrum. So this is kind of a new model which the Gandalf companies, so-called Gandalf companies are operating on, and other research firms like McKinsey are suggesting this kind of model to all the companies. So that is one thing which kind of bridging the gap on the business ownership. People and processes, it's very important. End of the day, you have a good process, but if you don't have a good people, right? Again, whatever process we write, it's all screwed up, right? So people are the essential components to have a great cybersecurity, right? And people having great cybersecurity skills are also greatly in demand in the market. So they have to pay up well, keep us happy, so that we also stick back and stay and work. And evolving technologies, you have new trends like cloud, big data, right? And you've got AI and ML, and you never know where is your data stored, how it is stored. So a lot of things are kind of putting up a challenge. And security architecture, so this is a very key component nowadays, right? Where we find a lot of gaps, right? So you design an application architecture or a business architecture, you have an end-to-end architecture. And for monitoring security, you put your firewall, IDS and IPS and things like that, right? And you have a security architecture map. So how far we are reviewing the security architecture map, at least on an annual basis or a kind of a biannual basis, to ensure that whether we have the right set of security involved in it. So we drop an SIEM and SIEM collects whole set of logs. So are we really having enough people to monitor all those SIEM logs and detect the threats and kind of doing it? So these are the classical problems in the security architecture which has to be gone through. And lack of visibility, right? Lack of visibility. The first thing is that they say that it takes more than 220 days to detect an APT attack, right? So what it means is that, so we have deployed the best set of tools, the best set of products from the industry, but we have not put enough people to monitor those tools. So that's a basic problem everywhere. So lack of visibility is one thing, and a lot of organizations are still struggling, like big organizations are still struggling to reconcile their asset inventory till today, right? So they have thousands of assets, and still they cannot reconcile. So these are the emerging challenges which are coming in. And when you say the requirements of cyber resilience, so in contrast to it, what and all you should have it, it's all, you need to have a proper business ownership. You should have education, awareness and monitoring, continuous awareness, very important. And effective security strategy. So you should have a solid security strategy set by your CIO or the CISO office, and integrated information-centric solution. Like, so hereafter, I think we have to also think in an angle like we are not protecting a server or a DMZ zone. We have to understand that we are protecting data, right? So each data has got a price, right? So for example, what I mean to say is like, you have a laptop, okay? Your CEO has got a laptop. Your CFO has got a laptop. So you have to measure whose laptop is most precious. Everyone is saying Dell laptop. If you go to finance and see the depreciation, the amount is still the same. But the value of data is totally different. If I have a hack or a ransom attack against your CFO's laptop in the month of March, there is 90-95% probability that I might get the ransomware again. the money, whatever ransom claim I do. So it is like very important to tag the asset, right? Not on the physical value of asset in the books, but on the value of data, what data the person has, right? It's very important. So, so these are the things which are required for the cyber resilience overall thing. And again, this is a traditional TBA matrix which gets pushed up in every forum what we do, right? You have threats, vulnerabilities, and assets. And again, a very key value kind of a thing like asset type and asset value is very important. You have to have a very focus on it. The example, whatever I gave about CFO laptop, this is what it is, right? And control weakness, gaps in security. So why we do a lot of compliance assessment, people always say that why there is so much of compliance assessment and so much of audits. The reason being is that on a regular operation, you might have a lot of oversight where people miss controls or the controls might not operate effectively. That's the reason why you have so much of audits, like you have SOX, you have SOC 2, ISO, PCI. This is what they try to do. They try to kind of check on a periodic basis whether you are compliant against those controls, right? So that we have to acknowledge. And when we talk about cyber resilience umbrella, so overall cyber resilience umbrella, if you talk me how it defines this, you have information security, securing the data, and cyber security, the holistic picture which is exposed to the cyber world, it's called the cyber security. So the known CIA confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and unknown CIA. And cyber resilience is unknown, unpredictable, uncertain, and unexpected. So all unknown possible combinations, right? So we had scenarios where we document our recovery strategy for what? For flood, for earthquake, for natural disaster, any natural disaster, political unrest. So have you ever documented for a cyber attack? Right, for example, I say there's going to be a DOS attack, or there's going to be a phishing attack on your top executives, right? So the application crashes, there's a malicious insider threat and the application crashes, what are you going to do, right? So right now, a lot of regulated industries like healthcare and banking, especially banking, the regulators are coming up in an angle of having kind of concrete requirements to cover cyber resilience. So they say that when you conduct your BCP DR drill, particularly the disaster recovery drill, you should also have a cyber scenario for that particular case, right? So you should have a documented run books, right? Say for example, if my internet banking channel is down, right? What are the top 5-6 things I will do, right? How do I kind of recover the crash logs? How do I kind of reboot the server? How do I restore it to normalcy? Do you have it? And are you periodically exercising that? So those are the very key aspects of cyber resilience. So for that, you should know the list of assets, you should have an integrated process, and you should have an overall disaster recovery plan, and you should exercise that at least on an annual basis to ensure that the exercise is working. Right? It is not an easy step because it involves your business continuity team, it involves your information security team, it involves your business team, it involves your IT team. So it's a big mammoth task, but this is what is the future going ahead. Right? So where are these regulations coming up from? So you have the US and European Union directives, you have ISO 27000K, ISF standards, NIST, COVID, right? So whatever I'm just presenting here, those are not new standards. These standards have got a specific set of control. Even the ISO 22300 standard for BCMS, they have controls, but we have not kind of tailored the controls to suit the cyber resiliency requirement, right? If there is going to be a cyber attack or if there is going to be a cyber security incident, how are you going to recover? So that is a missing piece in the puzzle which we have to do it. So no standard directly says that these are the controls for cyber resilience. It's all your regular ITGC and regular IT process controls. But how are you tuning to cyber resiliency matters? So this area has been neglected in the past, but this is catching up very nicely now, right? So you have your infrastructure security, you have your SOC, you have your critical information protection where you do the backup and recovery, policies and procedures, and user protection and awareness. So if you say cyber resilience, I have to start from the left and go on with protection. I should have a solid policy and process. I should update my information security policy also for the cyber resiliency requirements. I should have a critical infrastructure protection where I know the assets and how the backups are taking up. I should have a TBA matrix again, and then I should take care of the infrastructure. So these are the typical domains where you have the cyber resilience controls, right? So this is an enterprise cybersecurity architecture, kind of a ISRA architecture which they talk about it. You start from the strategy till the target operating model. So all these boxes are not something whims and fancies, all are self-explanatory. So but if you want to define a proper cyber resiliency, I said you should start from the architecture, right? From the business, touching on the architecture, design of application, people around that, and what is the existing process, and update your BCPDR plan and exercise it and complete it. Right? So it's a kind of a well-defined process. You have activities across each blocks here. So one more thing is also very kind of a more talkative point is about the cyber resistance, right? So many kind of e-commerce and other banking companies are kind of now measuring their rate, that is their resistant levels against the attacks, right? Like your body, right? You kind of have all your vaccines and things like that, so that you resist your body against a foreign disease and things like that. Similarly, if you are an organization, right? How much you can resist? Right? A classic example is the blue teaming and red teaming exercises which we have been doing, right? So, how quickly you can get compromised, or how quickly if it goes down you can recover, right? So these are the things which have been done by the red teaming and blue teaming exercises. So that particular result or that particular control has to be tagged to cyber resilience as well, which is very important. And then again, the base of decision making. So a lot of organizations have these policies and controls. But at a given situation, most of them lack in one thing, that is something called as the run book. So run book is a book where for a particular given scenario, right, for a DOS attack, you have this list of 5 to 6 steps. Who are the people to be notified? What is the RASI matrix? What is the final start end date? And who is doing the problem management or overall RCA data? So these things have to be clearly defined so that you can have a proper governance or a control over the cyber resiliency. And we have a cyber resiliency model also in the industry. So you have model from level 1 to level 5, right? So like it is very similar to your CMMI model, where you start from initial, repeatable, manage, and go to CMMI level 5, right? So this is the model. So these models have got, if you want to reach each level, you have to have a bare minimum set of controls and policies, right? So these controls are again derived from CIS or your SANS, critical security controls and things like that, right? So let's quickly just go through this level so that you can a little bit understand. So level 1 is no resilience. By default, everyone is in this level, right? If you even don't have anything. So areas like employment of controls, mission tailoring, information sharing, or you get the threat intelligence and cyber attack response. So these are the things. So when you assess the organization first, you can use this particular model. If you are doing a risk assessment, right? If you are a risk manager and you are doing a risk assessment, you can pick up this particular cyber resiliency maturity model and assess your organization and identify the gaps, and then you can bridge it. The next level is perform, where you have a few basic controls. Like for example, I have got the SANS critical security controls. The 20 controls I've got implemented, and I am periodically assessing on top of it. And I have a mission, and I have a basic SOC team who is taking care of the attack, and I'm responding to the attack. And I got some protection, like maybe you have your IDS, IPS, and you have subscribed to few threat protection or a kind of what you say, the indicators of compromise, right? If you get an indicators of compromise, cyber security intelligent feeds, right? You are subscribed to it. That is the perform level. And level 3 is managed, where you periodically have a proper compliance program, and you have a information sharing. Information sharing inputs is something like you get subscription from FireEye, or you get subscription from your respective countries' CERT, right? You have CERT India, CERT Singapore, CERT US, where you get all those things, and you have a threat response or a cyber security incident response team to do it. And finally, you also have some kind of a protection against a sophisticated attack like APTs and things like that. This is the managed level. And finally, the dynamic level is like a kind of I would say like a matured level, very matured level, an aspiring level. Level 4 and level 5 are aspiring levels, where you have got augment-based mission, like you have a periodic red teaming and blue teaming exercises which are done, and then you have a mission focused, you have a real-time response, and you respond to sophisticated attacks as well. So this is something like a well-matured level, but this requires a lot of time, money, and effort in terms of people process to handle this, right? But this is a kind of a very, if you are running a critical infrastructure services or critical business services, it is good time to invest, right? So that's very important. And finally, level 5 is the most resilient level, where these kind of cyber incidents, right? Say for example, if there's going to be a DOS attack, say example on Amazon, and Amazon can switch back within 20 minutes or 45 minutes. So that's their internal kind of a benchmarking, right? So how they can reach that level is because they are already in level 5. Their application architecture, security architecture, using microservices, right? Having redundant data centers, having dynamic routing of network traffic, all these things, and periodic exercise makes them so resilient, right? So these are like typical companies like the internet companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, right? So they are in this kind of category. And I think nowadays big international banks are also aspiring to be in this category. And now regulators like you from even starting from RBI or Monetary Authority of Singapore or Hong Kong Monetary Authority, they are mandating to have cyber security as one of the scenario for business continuity and disaster recovery. And they are also having forum of all banks, and they are doing cyber red teaming and blue teaming attacks exercises across all banks. All banks come and participate. Even back in Hyderabad, I don't know how many of you know, there is something called IDRBT, so you must have tagged, and which is the RBI's Institute of Development and Research in Banking Technology. So they conduct cyber security attack drills for all the banks in India, all the Indian banks in India, and most of the Indian banks do participate in that drill. So it is coming up more mature and mature in the last 2-3 years. So overall, these are the 5 maturity levels which we saw. And how do you kind of achieve your final kind of a target? So very simple steps. So just kind of, I got it from internet, it's a kind of a well-defined one. One is kind of step 1 is the basic system hygiene. You have all your basic IT controls, basic ITGC controls, basic cybersecurity controls being operated. And then you develop a comprehensive plan. How do you want to achieve it? And what are the controls which are critical, and map out the risk profile. So you might not need the same set of cyber resiliency requirement for all the 10 business processes or services. You will have some critical business process services. You have to do a proper business impact assessment BIA and rate the process in the ranking and hierarchy, and then apply the risk profile accordingly. And assess and measure today if something is going to happen, how are you going to recover that? This can be done in a logical risk assessment cycle, and then you mitigate the risk. And finally, they suggest something called cyber insurance, which is also picking up in the last 2-3 years. So this is also a very interesting topic for discussion. Again, a separate one takes a lot of time. But yeah, so if you feel that you are more vulnerable and you have been attacked already, it's a best idea to kind of consider on cyber insurance. But cyber insurance also, I think it involves a lot of procedures where the insurance premium and other stuff are based on your security posture. So typically, they will ask you all your certificates, whether you have got ISO, you have got PCI DSS, you have got SOC 2. So based on based on your profile, the premium is decided. But again, it is a good thing. Sometime tomorrow it happens. The best thing on cyber insurance, what I would say is, one big benefit you have is, tomorrow you are not in insurance, tomorrow you are subjected to an attack. Then you can call the insurance company and ask for a free digital forensic investigator. It's free of charge. So at least you save some money on them, right? So they're obligated to send it. And finally, once you have it and then get started, and this is not a single phase, it is a continuous cycle. So these are the kind of a common ways in which you can achieve cyber resilience. And final few best practices, what I have seen and practiced in my experiences. First thing is that develop the exact scope of IT assets you want to secure. You cannot secure all the IT assets whatever you have. You can secure only a handful of them, and you have to identify that. And finally, have all your detective and preventive controls working and someone monitoring that. Measure compliance periodically, maybe a quarterly or half-yearly assessment, which can tell the business and IT functions that how compliant they are against these controls and whether they have risk or not. That's very important. And create awareness among developers is very important. Developers should know what is an SQL injection, and developers should know what is OASP. So that responsibility is not entirely with the IT team. Of course, they are responsible, but still, as information security professionals or a risk professional or an audit professional, we should also guide them that they should have this kind of an awareness. And so nowadays, I think a lot of direct regulatory requirements are mandating that. So previously, if you say the regulatory audits, generally they stick and they meet the IT infrastructure guy, application manager, and the business manager and complete the audit. Now, auditors are going and sitting next to the developer asking them, can you demo me how are you developing your code? Do you know about OASP? So how do you log into your test system? How do you promote the code from development to test environment? So it is getting more and more intrusive, which is very much required because people should be aware, and you see a lot of gaps there, right? And in terms of the basic IT general controls are also not working in most of the areas, which is a very concerning part, right? So that is one thing. And very important last point is like, we cannot have preventive controls everywhere. That's a problem in classic cybersecurity. So if you're not having preventive controls, at least have predictive controls, so that it is okay to be hacked, but it is so shameful that you don't know who hacked you, right? That's the biggest shame. So try to put as much as predictive controls as possible, so that you kind of know that if something, because it's okay to be hacked everywhere. So until you are able to prove a point that I had reasonable security practice, I had predictive control, and I was able to point someone hacked me and I'm able to trace it down, it's perfectly fine. The problem where we are facing cybersecurity incident is people hack it, and it takes a lot of time to understand who hacked it, right? Because they don't have detective controls in most of the areas, as Mr. Sastry Pandya was saying. It is very difficult and it is getting day and day very dangerous. So that's my overall nutshell or basic takeaways from the cyber resilience session. Thank you so much, and I'm just open for a few questions. Any questions? I hope I'm standing between you and the team. I think if there are no questions, thank you so much. Have been a wonderful audience. And over to you, Amrita. Thank you.